So, hi everyone, welcome to the Freshworks and Vonage webinar. I hope you're having a really lovely day so far. My name is Patrick and I'm going to be your host for today. I will start with a quick introduction to myself, if that's okay. So I'm a regional sales manager here at Freshworks. I've been here for 4.5 years, and I lead a team of salespeople in the DACH region. So that's Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. Perhaps for those of you who don't know Freshworks yet, we're one of the fastest growing SaaS companies out there in the world. We have over 150,000 customers worldwide, and we provide solutions in the areas of customer experience and employee experience. And these help drive efficiency, improve the transparency, and ultimately empower your teams to become more successful. I'm joined today here by Stephen. Stephen is from Vonage. They're a great partner of Freshworks. So first of all, welcome. Glad to have you here today. Maybe you can introduce yourself and maybe say a few words about Vonage as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Patrick. Hello, everyone. I'm Stephen Giuffre, I'm a Senior Product Marketing Manager for Vonage for the e-commerce industry, as well as for the voice portfolio of APIs. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with us, Vonage is a global communications company that provides a number of solutions across the digital communication space, including applications for unified communications and contact center software. But what we'll focus on today with Freshworks is our API platform, which allows users to embed digital communication experiences into their applications, whether they exist over voice, SMS, video, or social chat apps.
Thank you very much, Stephen. I guess with that, we can move on to the agenda for today. Of course, we're here to talk about the pandemic and the effects it's had on the retail industry. Maybe throughout the webinar, I think Stephen and I will be sharing our experiences, discussing data and studies that we found that have come up in the market, and identifying key trends and initiatives companies are taking in this area as well. I think it will be really super interesting towards the end of this presentation. We're going to open it up for Q&A. So really understanding if you listeners out there are experiencing the same kind of shifts and trends, and seeing what your view on that is. And I think finally, we're also going to be talking about a joint initiative between Freshworks and Vonage that our companies are taking to bring back that human element to the retail industry, and in a post-pandemic world, of course, right? So if that's okay with everyone, I think we're good to get started. Stephen, as you know, we're living through extraordinary times. Every time we think there's light at the end of the tunnel, seems to get further and further away from us. Regions that previously were doing really well are now struggling again. It's definitely changed our world. It's taking a lot longer than we expected to get over it. And I guess, at least from the Freshworks perspective, which I can talk to, we're used to dealing with a lot of companies that have really high interactions with their end customers. So for example, the travel industry, the event management space, these are industries that have been really, really badly hit by this pandemic. And I think the retail space is no different, right? So I picked out a few data points out there. Of course, primarily hits the brick and mortar stores there. Total sales, if you look at the EU region, have dropped around 4% during the pandemic in 2020. Of course, there was not a lot of choice. People were in lockdown at home, physical stores were closed. Some businesses were maybe a little bit better prepared. They had some kind of e-commerce setup. I know one big brand had increase in their sales volumes in the e-commerce space of around 75%. So that allowed it to balance it out a little bit. And I think in general, it seems as if even in 2021, the e-commerce market is expected to be really strong, right? So we see over here 30% more than pre-pandemic times. Opening it up to you, Stephen, what are your thoughts on this? How did the pandemic change the landscape of retail for you?
Sure. Well, no doubt 2020 was an especially challenging year for retail overall. But despite that, we've seen that e-commerce growth really exceeded pre-pandemic expectations. That ability to purchase goods online with the option to have these items picked up or delivered was already growing significantly prior to last year. But the pandemic further accelerated the digital transformation of brick and mortar operations, while those digital native disruptors, as well as many large established retailers, were recording some unprecedented growth in that area. Fueled by the pandemic, though, we really saw double-digit growth worldwide for e-commerce, and Europe owns 3 of the top 6 markets, led by the UK, Germany, and France. It's important to note, however, the caveat here is that because digital transformation was pulled forward to 2020, worldwide e-commerce growth may be slowing down a bit this year, but there's nonetheless continued consumer enthusiasm for e-commerce. And even with some perhaps overall declines in retail, we're seeing online shopping continue to grow as that overall percentage of the retail market. So that's what we've been observing.
Thanks very much. I think it's really interesting, I guess, from a macro perspective. I think if we look at consumer behavior more on my own anecdotal evidence, I guess one thing I've definitely observed is a lot more people have tried out online shopping. So very basic example, I think of my mom, for example, she would never have bought anything online before. Now, not only does she know how to use the technology, but I think she also feels comfortable using that technology. And I think that is a big. If I were to think about myself, I started buying items that I previously perhaps wouldn't have bought online, things that are a lot more expensive. I bought an engagement ring last year, for example. I would have never risked perhaps doing that online before, right? So what you're definitely seeing is that a lot more people are online. And I think one stat that I found around that was that 2/3 of service leaders expect their contact center volumes to rise even when the stores are going to open again as well, right? So there's a lot more people going online. And I guess as more people are moving online, it means that some companies can handle it better than others, right? So some companies, if they don't increase their workforce, change their setup, they're going to struggle to offer the same level of customer experience they were doing before. And of course, there's a risk of certain things falling through the cracks, right? And I think one observation that the market seems to be seeing as well is more important than price or product. Customers are flocking to companies who are able to offer real reliable service. And that is one of the main reasons or factors they would pick one company over another, right? But maybe you can drill maybe a little deeper into these kind of changes in customer behavior and tell us a little bit of what you've experienced as well.
Yeah, sure, Patrick. Yeah, I mean, the expectation is that digital transformation and expansion will continue. And as you mentioned, many consumers new to online shopping will continue with online shopping. And I'm actually one of those as well. And I've become much more adept at, say, mobile shopping as well. And then, as I mentioned, e-commerce will continue to become a larger percentage of the overall retail shopping. But as brands continue their digital transformation, consumer expectations are evolving. And it's important, I think, to recognize these expectations in order to stand out and provide a differentiated shopping experience. So, for example, today's customers expect businesses to interact with them on their terms, at any time, on any device, and on any channel, whether it's text, voice, social apps, video. And with regard to video, perhaps no surprise, video chat grew dramatically last year. One of the stats in our global customer experience report, which I've referenced on this slide here, is that almost 4 years of growth occurred from January to August of last year. And then customers also want their interactions they want them to be easy and deliver value. So examples here are offering self-service through voice and chatbots, but also being able to connect to a live agent for more complex requests. All of this needs to be accomplished in local languages and, again, on those channels and devices of choice. And then the interest in contextual communications has grown significantly over the past 10 years. Customers want connected, seamless experiences, and they want their intents and sentiments to be understood. So towards that end, a brand's ability to effectively track their customer's journey, regardless of channels used, and their ability to leverage contextual communications through AI tools such as sentiment analysis, well, these become important gauges of overall customer satisfaction.
Really, really interesting. And I think you've mentioned already some great examples of changes in the customer expectations and how companies are starting to look at this and approach this, right? I think maybe rather than just simply from a workforce perspective, people are definitely moving into these digital initiatives. I've also brought a stat here from a McKinsey report that I found, and it said, and I found this was interesting, that nearly all organizations, so no matter of their size, whether it's the big traditional retailers or even the small startups, they're completely pivoting their business models to be more digital as a result of the pandemic as well, right? And maybe to add to that, I think it's important also, we're coming from these software companies that sell solutions in this area, but this digitization is not only happening in that area as well, right? And I think it's only fair to say that companies are investing in different areas. One of them, for example, merging their offline worlds with their online worlds. So they're investing in omni-channel inventory management. Of course, in the pandemic, they want to invest in contactless payments, warehouse automation, and things like that. Another big area I've seen is security, right? So people are a lot more knowledgeable about how they deal with their own data, how much data they're giving companies. And we've seen already, unfortunately, companies that had data leaks. This can have a huge effect on their branding if you don't invest enough in this area as well, right? I guess where we come in again is when it comes to the workforce perspective. So remote working is definitely here to stay. I saw another stat, 23% of all employees said they want to continue working from home. And so even if you want to retain as a business, I guess your best employees, you need to be able to allow that. So that's where you're going to see that investment in cloud infrastructure, cloud-based solutions that help employees engage with each other and communicate with each other. But of course, as you said before, communicate in a much better way with their end customers as well, right? So maybe you can take us through some of those changes that you've been seeing as well from the Vonage perspective.
Yeah, absolutely, Patrick. That's a good launching point to some of the trends that we're seeing. So, historically, solutions proposed to e-commerce brands, at least in kind of some of our experiences, have centered more around delivering account authentication, verification, and shipping and delivery alerts. But as the online shopping experience has become much more immersive to consumers, the focus is expanding to omni-channel, and for a brand to enable the entirety of the customer journey while also adding personalization and context to the experience. So here's some of the key trends that we've seen. First, mobility is dominating online sales. With consumers constantly on the move, mobile retail revenue is expected to reach nearly 3 trillion euros this year. So a strategy that includes integration with social apps or a branded mobile experience with in-app voice or messaging reaches customers no matter where they're located. And then more and more, e-commerce customers expect personalized experiences. And by leveraging a shopper's previous purchase details and searches, additional relevant products can be more easily recommended when that history can be compiled across channels. And then significantly, augmented and virtual reality are making online shopping much more interactive, meaning customers can try on products virtually, arrange furniture virtually within their rooms, and much more. Adoption of this technology has been growing dramatically. And I saw a stat that the augmented reality market is projected to have 2.4 billion users in the next 2 years. Now, this in particular is a multi-channel use case where a video API can be augmented with additional imagery and data via connectivity to an AI engine, really any AI engine of your choosing, which can then be sent back to the customer's device all in real time with rich media messaging. And then finally, voice search is growing in popularity. Users of mobile devices or in-home natural language devices have become more and more comfortable with voice searches. Voice shopping is expected to grow to 33 billion euros by next year, with almost a third of internet users using voice to look up information, or in fact, make a purchase. So here, a voice API with speech recognition connected to a self-service bot can manage a voice-enabled shopping experience in real time. So some real exciting trends that are emerging within this industry.
I think so, particularly since maybe the Alexa was the Christmas present of choice for many in the last Christmas period as well. So you mentioned like bots and AI. I guess that's only part of the story, right? One objection I've always heard from maybe more traditional retailers as well is that they differentiate themselves from other companies out there because they are able to offer a more personal touch, right? So they're kind of unsure about investing in bots. They feel that they could make it quite impersonal, perhaps, this interaction they have with their customers. And one of my typical responses to that is, I guess, well, yes, if you don't do it correctly. But I guess I've seen really cool ways that all sorts of different companies can use bots and AI and chat in a connected way to offer an amazing customer journey as well, right? So I think one example I can think of is someone who had looked at bots maybe for handling simple repetitive questions, and they said, look, it works, I guess, but it's not really kind of the major ROI we're kind of expecting here, right? So one project we then did with them is to then look at what are your high volume transactional questions where agents are really not offering a lot of value apart from just reading information out from their backend systems back to the customer. So very typical one was one of their big questions that they were receiving was, where's my order, right? So a very classic retail question. And there, it was really easy actually to automate that through a chatbot, right? You could even do that proactively to the customer, so he doesn't have to approach you and ask you about it as well. And I think that's where your kind of APIs come into play as well. And I think from a company's perspective, you're then having a lot less work and time and effort invested from your own agents to interact and give the best possible experience to the customer. From the end customer perspective, if you're not having to proactively yourself go to the company and ask about your order and spend maybe, I don't know, 10, 20 minutes of your time every 3 days to always ask for updates, that's also a much better experience, right? So that's just one example where you can do it. There are many, many more for improving your customer engagement and things like that. Maybe you can take us through like some of the different areas that you see it in and where Vonage successfully has implemented that.
Yeah, absolutely, Patrick. And I think it's important. I think you really kind of hit it on the head there when you talked about, there's really, bots are just part of that experience. And it's the thing here is that they're connected experiences, because there are customers that prefer self-service to quickly get their questions answered. But ultimately, they may require additional information, or their issue may be more complex. As long as these are connected, a connected journey, then you're really providing that overall good experience for the customer, a better experience. So let's drill down a bit into the e-commerce journey to kind of highlight some of these. This is a general example of the e-commerce customer journey, but it's important to acknowledge that this is just a starting point for your brand's specific use cases and purchasing journeys. So, I'll highlight it starting at the top with authentication of accounts. This is very important for registration and transactions. And this is achieved with a secure two-factor authentication solution. And for example, Vonage's Verify API is a patented solution that delivers PIN codes with a user's choice of SMS or voice. And then cart abandonment can be mitigated when shopper concerns can be addressed in real time with solutions such as messaging within your application, or if preferred via email. But the important thing here is the ability to reach customers via their channel preferences, whether via social messaging or voice, keeps customers informed of the status of their order. Together, Vonage and Freshworks offers a combination of self-service and live support that is multi-channel, including messaging integration with SMS and popular social apps such as WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger. And then also important to note that video has an ever-growing role in supporting e-commerce use cases, from product demonstrations to see what I see support scenarios. So the message here is that overall, Together, we provide real-time self-service and live interactions, as well as enabling AI capabilities that further provide greater context of your customer's needs, intent, and overall satisfaction. So again, the point here is that these are connected journeys where you can ultimately provide a better experience to your customers.
Understood. So I guess if I were to kind of just give a live example, I was just trying to think of one, right? So let's say I'm an online retailer, I sell bicycles, and I've got a customer. He's pretty upset. He's already plastered it all over the social media channels. And he gets in touch. He says he's got his bicycle, it's got a fault, and he wants to return it. He does that maybe on the chat. So there, you're saying potentially could have a chat. He has the bot perhaps asking him what his query is about. He says he wants to return an item. And there you could have an inbuilt validation process that you said, right? So you could check, okay, is this really the person who bought the item? After that, you could then say as a business, you don't want to necessarily just allow them to cancel immediately, but perhaps offer the ability to chat to an agent first, pass them on to a live chat agent who then quickly identifies, right, so this is not necessarily an issue with the bicycle itself, but the way they've set it up, right? And then you could offer actually immediately to the customer the option to say, hey, of course we could return it, we could take it back, you'll get your full refund, but if you really want, I can set you up within your same chat window a video call with one of our experts who's going to help you to set your bicycle up correctly, right? So you could seamlessly hand over then from the bot to the agent to your technical expert or store employee who's then on the video trying to help the customer set up his bicycle. And I guess that's something that's really, really cool as a customer experience, right? And that's a good example, I hope, of this setting up.
And I think an important note here, Patrick, is that this is a continuous conversation, if you will, with the customer. So you can start, as you mentioned, with that bot. You ultimately transfer to a live agent who can tell a customer is upset and can therefore bring in, say, a bot for sentiment analysis, as well as bring in a manager if necessary, who can request a transcript of the call to further gauge the customer's sentiment, emotions. And then this all can be done in local languages, so a language bot can be brought in. So there's a lot you can do within a single conversation to truly enrich that interaction with the customer.
That's really cool. I like the example. I've heard a few similar examples that we've just been discussing as well. So I guess when it comes to our solutions, combined solutions, maybe Steve, how would you kind of wrap it up? What's the message you would bring to the listeners in today?
Yeah, to kind of recap and summarize, I'd look at this as first, when you partner with Freshworks and Vonage to accelerate your online purchasing and delivery projects, you enable flexible, intelligent, and personalized communications where your customers can interact with you on their terms, as I mentioned, on any time and on any channel. And then you can stand apart from your competitors when you can readily access shopper history across multiple channels. And again, by having those personalized contextual communications, in many cases by incorporating AI. And when I say AI, not just as part of the support experience, but with bot-enabled self-service capabilities when customers have that preference, and making AI an important element of purchasing and delivery use cases too, in addition to a combined the use cases we've been talking about. And finally, our developer tools provide everything that's needed to easily and quickly build applications, including multi-platform and multi-channel applications. So that's kind of how I would sum that up, Patrick.
Thanks very much. So, I mean, of course, we're offering this package because we see, particularly in this post-pandemic world, or the world that we're still living in, it can give retailers who even come from more traditional backgrounds a really quick head start as well in this world as well, right? So I think one of the elements that we've seen in some of the customers we've been working with together as well is just the pace at which something like this can be implemented, right? Just not really complex in terms of the technology. A lot of it comes out of the box, so there's not a lot of coding as well needed as well. I think that's what makes it really effective, right? So traditional retailer who's maybe experimented a little bit with a chat can go from having a chat to having a bot, having certain levels of deflection, having potential video chats with their agents and experts in a matter of, let's say, a few weeks as well, right? So I think you're quickly going to understand as a company whether this is something that is giving you value or not, right? All right. I guess, Stephen, we've come to the end of today's webinar. But as I said in the beginning, one of the most interesting parts is when we make it interactive and we open it up as well for Q&A. So if you're interested in any of the things that we discussed, of course, we've got a lot of documentation on that. We have videos that we can show you. We can set up personalized demonstrations, but perhaps more relevant, at least for today, do let us know perhaps in the chat box any questions that you might have. Do let us know if you feel that you're seeing similar trends in the market or if you're seeing different trends as well. I think we can open it up now to the rest of the group to take a few questions and address them right here, right now. Okay, there's another question here. I think after that we can probably wrap it up. So how long will the changes in retail continue for, and when will things return to normal?
So, I mean, I can start there if you'd like, Patrick. I mean, I think that, you know, ultimately, I think there's a lot of you know, goodness coming here. And I think, well, for starters, I think as we've talked about, online retail, you know, e-commerce is more or less here to stay. We've added new demographics. People are now more comfortable with that experience. And it's just going to build from there with some of the technologies that we talked about. But that's not to say that the retail experience overall is going to be forsaken for this. As a matter of fact, I think there's quite a bit of demand that's built up now as things kind of bounce back from an economic and social standpoint. You know, you'll find that retail is also a destination as well. So I think it's a matter of giving customers choices in how they interact, the immediacy and the personalization that can be had from e-commerce, but then also that experience of being within the retail store, and especially if it's kind of built around other elements of going out and the retail experience, and you know, destination shopping and destination places built around restaurants and theaters. So overall, I think the overall outlook, I believe, is very positive. It's just that things will change, but I think ultimately for the better, in that you're giving customers flexibility in terms of how they interact. And in the long run, I think those are net gains.
I agree. And I think that's what we talked about today, right? So with the data that we showed, 30% increase in e-commerce sales expected as well for 2021. I think that's a shift that's perhaps here to stay, that more people get to know how to buy online and want to stay online because they have great experiences, and companies are getting better equipped at managing those new expectations as well. Okay, I think there's one final question, maybe a slight overlap with the first one, but it's about someone who's got a very small team, just a few teams and agents in the customer support, and whether it would be worth it from an ROI perspective to invest in this kind of technology. Again, I think it depends a little bit on your business model, of course, in terms of what ROI you're going to get and what your expectations are of it. If you're really high volume and you have very simplistic questions, level 1 questions, that's something where a chatbot, which is kind of in deflection mode, can be really, really helpful and quickly get you an ROI. So there are companies out there that charge, let's say, 50 cents per resolution in a bot use case. If your cost per interaction is, let's say, 4 or 5 euros, then that makes it quite attractive actually as an investment. Yeah, otherwise, if you're maybe a little bit lower in volume, you have more complex solutions, there's other costs to also take into account, right? So what's your cost of returning your items and things like that? It's probably quite expensive, and if you can reduce that by offering better adoption of your products, better overall conversion rates as well through this. So I think it can be used fantastically as well to convert more people from the website the first time around. Then you can quickly go into the positive area of ROI as well.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that, Patrick. And I do think that it really kind of goes back to my answer to the first question in terms of the business challenges that you want to solve, as well as the volumes that you're incurring in terms of shopper interactions, support calls. I think ultimately it could be a chatbot video chat application that might be right here. You may want to add things like an IVR as well to kind of direct to answer, to address common questions, like recordings, directions, and the like. So again, these are solutions that can be built upon. But again, love the opportunity to kind of discuss individual use cases, and again, the business challenges that ultimately you want to solve in your plan going forward.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for the questions. Thanks for taking part today. It's been really fun, and hope that there were some things that you can take away from this webinar. And yeah, have a lovely, lovely evening, everyone. Speak soon, hopefully. Bye-bye. Thank you very much, Stephen.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, everyone.